quite some time I've been wanting to build a historic Chinese wheelbarrow. I've read just how influential they were, how they transported tremendous loads in historical several hundred years ago in China. But the reason I wanted to check it out is because you can't buy this kind of wheelbarrow today. Today we either have the two-wheel wheelbarrow or the single wheel up front with a really small wheel in both cases. So I thought if this is that good, then there ought to be plenty of these around now. So you can't buy one. They're difficult to build because the biggest standard bicycle tire is like a 29-inch. So I had to make this one from scratch and test it out and compare it to regular utility wheelbarrows. And let's see how it turns out. I decided to build this one as close as I could to the way they look in the pictures. What's the drawback? What are the advantages? Well, first of all, they're supposed to be very easy to roll because there's such a small contact to the ground. However, disadvantages. It's pretty obvious. There's a great big wheel in the middle. That makes things difficult to load. Soil, dirt can come out the hole here. I need a framework over top to prevent that from happening. What else? High center of gravity. Okay, the bed being well above the wheel, and I can see this being very tippy. Okay, so anyhow, let's compare this to my other wheelbarrows. Here I have two standard wheelbarrows. One has two wheels, fairly stable, pretty low, pretty limited size. Here's a single wheelbarrow, much easier to turn, low to the ground, a little bit bigger. Both of them have some dirt in them because I carry loads in generally 5-gallon buckets, and I need to be able to seat these in the dirt. Makes them a little more stable, a little less likely to fall over. So let's just see how our Chinese wheelbarrow does. Big wheel in the center. Built the box around it. Made it so that the hub is below the bottom of my the bed. Just to kind of show you the assembly here. Got my wheel assemblies. This is a 30-inch by 48-inch piece of 3/4-inch plywood. Just 2x4s, 4-foot 2x4s. I think I had about 20 inches sticking out this way. The rest screwed into the floorboard or the bed of the cart. Cut out an area in the center big enough to hold this. Here's my hub assembly. The 1-inch pipe doesn't turn. The 1.25-inch pipe does turn. And as I said before, these are my two assemblies, one on each side to hold the hub. The next thing I did was make two wheel carrying assemblies. They're simply a 3-foot piece of 2x4. I took from the 4x8 sheets that I cut the wheels out of, I just cut the corners into these triangles. They don't have to be perfect triangles, they just all have to match. So you cut one off and then use it as a template for the other 4. Needs to be about 7 or 8 inches between the center of the axle and the edge here. So attach one of these, glued it and screwed it to each side of the 2x4. And remember, the axle just needs to fit in snugly. It will not be rotating. The hub of the wheel will actually be what rides on the axle here. So make 2 of these assemblies. I added a little strip of metal here so that the actual hub won't dig into the wood. And I will attach these to the underside of the wheelbarrow, and we'll look at that next. Everything balanced on that wheel. So I'm using 3/4-inch plywood, 36 inches in diameter, and as I said, 3/4 inch wide. I'm going to cut out 3 of these wheels and then glue them together and screw them together for my center wheelbarrow wheel. Now, you may think, oh, I've got one already cut out, so why don't I use this as a template for the others? Well, in sawing with the jigsaw, I'm not as precise as I'd like to be. I mean, there's a pretty big dip. So I'm hoping that by doing each wheel separately, they'll balance out and I'll have a smoother wheel overall when I combine them. So the way I get a circle for each wheel, I have a length of 2x4 here, 2 holes, 18 inches between them. That way it will make a 36-inch wheel. One is a 1/2 inch hole, the other is a 1/4 inch. And I put them down here. Okay, now that I've drilled this, it's beginning to rain. Now that I've drilled this, this will be the center of my wheel. So I put a Sharpie in the 1/2 inch hole. Sharpie's giving out here. Okay, now I have a perfect 36-inch circle, and with this as the center, a good center place to drill the hole in the center for the hub. Okay, now to saw it out. On the inside, about 1/2 inch, I'm using a 1/2 inch bit. Now, using my jigsaw, wheelbarrow. First, for the axle, I'm using a 1 foot long, 1 inch pipe nipple. For the hub of the wheel, I'm using a 6 inch long, 1 1/4 inch pipe nipple. Thread over each other like this, so this will be how my wheel will rotate. Okay. Before I drill the hole, let me just point out that what I have here is I decided I wanted to have some cutouts to lighten the wheel up a little bit while still leaving a strong wheel. So I first drew a straight line using a yardstick between the center and the edge. Then I used a protractor to measure out 72 degrees. Doesn't have to be exact. Mark another line, then mark another 72 degrees until I got 5 pie wedges for the wheel. Then cut out of a pizza box a rough shape that I thought would make a good cutout, outlined it, and then cut them out. So that's where that came from. So for making room for the hub of the wheel will go right here. Start with using an 1.5 inch hole saw. The hole is already drilled from the when we outlined the wheel, so that fits in perfectly the center. I wish I had a more appropriate, something more like an 1 3/4 inch hole saw. I don't have one, so I'm going to use an 1.5 inch hole saw and then widen the hole. Okay, now I have the 1.5 inch hole. As you can see, the hub just a little bit too big. So since I don't have, 1 3/4 inch might be too big if I actually tried it. What I'm using is called a saw bit. Okay, it will drill a hole, but it will also enlarge a hole because the sides are serrated. Okay, so this takes quite a while, but what I do is enlarge the hole by just going around. Do that for a while, flipping it over periodically, and then testing to see if this will fit in. And it takes a while, but after a while, and the hole can be a little ragged, that doesn't hurt anything. But when I get it to where this fits snugly inside, then I'll have the hole drilled like I want it. I could take apart an old tire and tack the tread onto my wheel here. Still might try that if this doesn't work, but I decided to try to go, since most of the old tires I've got are really old and rotten. I want to use some truck bed liner to kind of make a tire and to kind of smooth out. This is very uneven, so I'm going to spray this down with a coat of truck bed liner, let it harden, and then over that spray with some water seal, some liquid rubber. So anyhow, this is just to make it waterproof, kind of make an artificial tire, and to smooth out some of my very, very rough jigsaw work. Okay, slow movement, hard to push. It does turn well, but this is nothing I would want to use. In my garden, it's just too tippy. So, I must be missing something. I think I built it reasonably close to the Chinese model. I know there's many improvements to be made, but perhaps when I see pictures of this, there's people being carried as passengers. A person would not get on a wheelbarrow to go 30 feet. So perhaps this is like a bicycle. It gets more stable the faster you go. So I'm going to see if I can go a little faster and see if that improves the stability. Okay, it is definitely steadier at speed. All turns have to be slight, so you would need a good path to run this thing on. But I think I answered the question. The reason you don't see this style today, nobody makes one, we have better methods of moving things over distance. This is not a good tool for, say, the garden or the work construction site. It's not good for slow movement, it's too tippy. But I do see that it was a cheap method of transport back before we had better methods, trucks and whatever, to move things over distance.